to 19, and it was her great good fortune that she looked even younger than that. Most laboring men outside, of any age, were lucky to earn $1 a day. She could have kept working for years, especially here, where men outnumbered women 6 and 7 to 1, but she had plans, big ones. One more winter, one last contribution to her savings, and she would be ready to move on. She looked around the room, at the sea of faces upturned to her, and felt that thrill of power she always felt at being the center of so much concentrated male attention. The chiffon began in a spiral of fabric at her ankles and finished up in a graceful swath around her shoulders, the loose end draped over her bare arm. So closely bound together were her feet that she could take only tiny, mincing steps, which was just as well given the height of the heels on her shoes. Big Ben had wanted her to go barefoot, but she knew what the heels did to the line of her legs, displaying their graceful and well-turned length to best advantage, making a man imagine them wrapped around his waist. One miner had fought his way forward to the edge of the stage. He was ragged, bearded, and smelled as if he hadn't bathed since the river froze over. He looked hungry, and so very hopeless. She gave him a special smile all his own, inviting everything, promising nothing. She was a whore, but she was an honest whore. She gave value for money received, so long as the money was received. That didn't mean she couldn't be kind. "It's going to be a long, cold, lonely winter, boys," she said, and there was a shout of agreement. She walked down to center stage and out onto the catwalk, thrusting into the room, the little mincing steps causing her breasts to shimmy. The tuft of hair at the V of her legs was a shadowy patch beneath the chiffon. She put a little extra into the roll of her hips to underline just what was on the auction block that evening. "For me, too," she added, pouting, and they howled like wolves on the scent. Again she felt the thrill, a flush of power that began somewhere low in her belly and spread up her torso and down her limbs. A faint film of perspiration broke out over her skin, and a commensurate low, prowling growl rose from the crowd. She performed a 3/4 turn and paused to cast a roguish glance over her right shoulder. "We have a saying here in the North Country, boys. I know you've heard it. The odds are good, but the goods are odd." She winked a violet eye at one man standing in the back, watching her over a glass of Big Ben's watered-down whiskey. He was a regular of hers, a banker who was as conservative with his own money as he was acquisitive of others. He hadn't liked the idea of his favorite dance partner taking herself out of circulation for the entire winter, but then he wouldn't be bidding this evening either. She had no doubt that he was ready to take her evening's earnings in deposit, however, just as soon as it had been paid over and Big Ben's commission deducted. She let one hand skim suggestively down her cocked hip, reminding him of what he'd be missing. His eyes narrowed against the smoke of the cigar clenched in his teeth, and she laughed her husky laugh. "I'm sure you'll agree, these goods aren't the least bit odd." Big Ben and Japanese Jack had been priming the bidders for the last week, with announcements of the auction, including tantalizing hints as to exactly what skills and services the highest bid would bring. The flyers were papered all over town, and every claim from Log Cabin to Circle City. The always needy miners of the Klondike had been quivering for days at the prospect of the Dawson darling dancing the slow, juicy waltz just for them for 6 exquisite months. No one would notice the dark or the cold with the Dawson darling waiting in his bed. "Here I am, gentlemen," she said. "It is generally held that my looks are pleasing and that my figure is good." She waited for the chorus of agreement and was not disappointed. "What are my terms?" She tossed the end of chiffon over her shoulder, where it trailed behind her like the train of a wedding dress, as she walked down stage again. She came to the end of the catwalk and met the fierce blue eyes of a tall, blond man standing near the double doors. In a room full of men who wanted her without reservation,